He will reach over to the Democratic aisle. Connor, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
The Pennsylvania Supreme Court is sending the district map back to the drawing board. The court's decision said the Republican-drawn congressional map constituted gerrymandering. The Supreme Court has yet to take a stance on gerrymandering despite visiting the case multiple times throughout history. Here to break down Pennsylvania's gerrymandering situation is Talking Points analyst Shruti Marathe.
Gerrymandering is back in the courts. Gerrymandering is the process of drawing voting districts to benefit a particular political party or group. Last week, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court struck down the Republican-drawn congressional map. Pennsylvania has one of the most extreme cases of gerrymandering in the country. Given that the ruling was according to the Pennsylvania law, it is unlikely that it will be overturned by the Supreme Court. Ultimately, though, the court's decision is improbable to change congressional seats in the Democrats' favor. The Supreme Court has visited the topic of partisan gerrymandering multiple times throughout history, but it is yet to result in a decisive stance. The justices are split in the role the court should play in gerrymandering, with conservative justices saying that the rule should be non-justiciable. The most recent gerrymandering case was Gill versus Whitford, heard last October, challenging the district lines drawn based on the 2010 census. With a 4-4 divide, that case will come down to Justice Kennedy's decision. While Kennedy agrees the issue should be handled by other branches of government, he said he is looking for a workable standard to manage partisan gerrymandering. With the issue still looming, the Numbers website 538 has attempted to redraw the maps with their own boundaries. They created maps according to different restrictions, including compactness, competitiveness, and minority representation. The process was difficult, reinforcing the difficulty of fixing gerrymandering practices.
Now, Shruti, you said that 538 had problems with the redistricting. So what caused those problems?
Yeah, I mean, when you're trying to draw maps, even if you're not trying to have a partisan bias, there's a bunch of different rules you have to pay attention to, including compactness rules, including rules to have communities of interest taken into account. And different states have different rules, making it even more complicated. So, for example, 538 drew a map based on compactness, right? When you're trying to draw a map based on compactness, you're no longer taking into account the Voting Rights Act. That's leading to creating minority-majority groups, and at the end of the day, you end up having a lack of clearly defined areas.
And what about the Supreme Court? Are we foreseeing any action there, you think?
I mean, with the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, probably not. With the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's decision, they said it's due to PA law, so it's probably not going to be seen in the Supreme Court. As for Gill versus Whitford, that's going to be a 4-4 split, so it really comes down to what Justice Kennedy decides.
Certainly an issue that will affect elections and thus decisions for years to come.
Definitely.
Shruti, thank you so much for covering.
My pleasure.